amazing expert with us today. We have Roy Rich. And so Roy, he grew up in the horse industry riding Arabians and showing in the English and Western disciplines. But after discovering reining when he was 13, he made a name for himself in elite cow horse competitions. So Roy turned pro in 2003 and started his own business in 2010. Among many titles, he has been the NRCHA National Champion in the Limited Open Bridle Horse, World Champion in the Open Two-Horse Reining, and Reserve National Champion in the Limited Open Hackamore, along with other winning year-end titles at regional competitions. So, awesome, Roy. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
My pleasure. I'm well. How are you?
Good. I see you're out riding already.
Oh, yeah.
Always working.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, as you know, the topic we're talking about today is keeping your animal athlete first and the sport second. And I can see that you're out and about doing your daily routine of just riding in the mornings. Do you mind telling me a little bit about your business you have in Temecula?
Well, I professionally train rein cow horses. I train open horses for me to show, and I also train amateurs horses and amateurs so they can show them. We break a lot of babies, so just all around horse training.
Yeah, and you're busy all the time. You're always doing something.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So just going into it, because I know, like, for example, you are doing a routine in the mornings, and you have a lot of horses you work with. How would you help someone who they're building bonds with their horses? Like each horse is individual, right? So how do you work with each horse, trying to help them learn that procedure every day, like a session? Is there any specific things that you make sure you focus on every day?
Well, when I approach each horse, I think about the end result, what the end result is, and how I'm going to get that specific individual to that result. The biggest thing, a mistake that people make, is try to treat each horse the same, and they're not. They're all different. So I try to focus on, we have multiple parts to the reining pattern and the cow work. So I try and focus on one specific part for maybe half a week, 3 days. And when that feels good, then I move on to another group of parts. Instead of working on small bits every day, I let that horse just think about one or two specific things for that work in the reining. And then we also have to work cows. So my warm up with my horses are, I think about the reining, how what I'm doing right now is going to also tie in with my cow work. And so we do a little bit of rein work, get those spots solid, and then also work a cow. So what I'm doing, it's similar to the 3-day eventing. They have to do the reining, they have to do the cutting, they have to go down the fence. So you have to make sure you have enough horse to have an efficient work each day to get all 3 events covered. And I don't work all 3 events in one work, but we think about the big picture. And so one big thing that helps is when you're training horses, make sure you take the time to think. And when your horse is doing something right, stop, let them breathe, and let them think about what you're doing and process what you just taught them. And another approach that helps me, that I remind myself and the boys that work for me, always get on your horse and expect that they're going to be good. Don't expect that they're going to be bad, and don't plan on that baggage being there that was there yesterday. Otherwise, they'll never move on. So you always have to plan on them learning what you taught them on the last ride. And if they don't, then you address it. But if you get on every day expecting that baggage, if they're stiff to the left for whatever reason, and you plan on that every day, they'll be stiff to the left for their whole life.
Yeah. Because
so that's how, that's simple outlook on how to progress with a horse.
Yeah. Just moving forward and not focusing on the problems, but just overcoming them. And just acknowledging that they're there, but not like honing in as if
you just don't want to get on and instantly dwell on what last week was.
Right.
Plan on it working and plan on moving forward. And if it shows up, you fix it, and then you plan on moving forward. And so that way you give each horse a fair chance to be their best every day.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, those are great tips. And when you say you work, some reining and then cows, do you do that within like one day, as in like one session? Like you'll start from the beginning, and then the second session you work on the cows?
It's all one work. So we get on, and as our warm up, we do reining stuff. today, for example, this little horse I'm sitting on, I ran circles, big, fast, small, slows, and I worked on my spins. My warm-up, I did counter-cantering, flexing, things like that. And so right now, while we're on the phone, he's catching his air. Yeah. We're going to do a couple more spins, and then we'll go work a cow.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, for example, it's really interesting just when you first get on and you're trying to get them in that workman mode, the mentality, and maybe this horse in particular, you've been doing it quite for a while, so they're kind of already knowing what's going to happen. But like, let's just say it's the first time and you're getting them into the routine. What do you do to help them, get in that work mindset?
So one thing that I try to pay close attention to when I get on these horses, I want to make sure I walk them for a while, to loosen up physically because they've been in their small cages, but also so that they think when I get on, it's not straight to work, so they don't have anxiety. They know that they get to have their own time, loosen up, chill out. So because you can't, it's very hard to show a horse that gets anxious. And so you have to be real aware that every step you take, that they're just relaxed. So you have to train that, keep that in your training program, to that downtime, that relaxed time. Like, hey, I can be on you and life's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and then when you're doing your work and you need to, amp the pressure up, or the energy at least, they're confident. Is that what I'm getting? Yeah.
Well, it's that, and then it's, once I put a lot of pressure on this horse, spin them fast, and then they know I quit riding and just sit there. They can relax their neck, take a breath, no big deal. And so that they know how to chill out and regroup.
Right.
Same as us.
And, same as us. I mean, we just need a break after you do something good. You want a good relax, just to enjoy what you just did.
Yes.
So you're right. I imagine you're riding stallions too?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the differences and for stallion work and how the behavior is versus a gelding or a mare when you're riding for competition? Is there anything in particular to keep in mind on that?
Well, I try not to treat my stallions any different than any other horse. My stallions live next to geldings, and they live next to one another. They can touch one another. They have the wire panels so that they can physically see other horses. I don't want to keep them isolated because then that'll escalate. Then they get more excited when they see other horses. But when they live with other horses and they can haul next to horses, and we have no issues at the shows as far as getting steady. Yeah. And then when you train a stallion, you just have to keep in mind they might lean a little bit more. I can put leg pressure on, and they might be slower to release it just because of their machismo instinct. But you also have to be careful to not overtrain and pick a fight with a stud, because it's their instinct to fight back. So you have to be very clear to that stud and clear to yourself. I got what I want. I'm going to leave it alone. Right. And that helps progress with the stallion. Otherwise, you just teach them to fight, and they think fight when you get on, just because that's their genetic instinct. Exactly.
Wow. Yeah, because I don't know many people who do, I mean, of course, for competition, for riding studs and things like that, but it's really interesting, I think, for other people to understand, it is a little different when you ride a stud, and you have to keep that in mind, and not pick fights, and just be very clear with what you're asking, and then just let it go, release the pressure.
Yes, exactly.
Really interesting. So I know, gosh, when you say you've done for you work the cows and you go against the wall, that takes a lot of confidence for the rider and for the horse to go at that speed and then just cut into the wall. How do you build your horse's confidence when you're getting them to do these activities?
Well, it starts from a young age. When they're 2-year-olds, a lot of guys spend time in just the cutting pen in a small area with their young horses. I teach mine that they can track a cow around in a big space, and it's no big deal. That cow's not going to run away or anything like that. But the biggest thing with what we do is to teach a horse how to rate with the cow. Just go get with that cow and go the same speed as that cow. We don't ever want to go too fast, too slow, or go chasing. We're never chasing. We're in control and in a controlling position. So obviously we build up to that, but these horses, I have to teach them how to stop quickly when I ask. And so when I pick up on him to help him stop with the cow, I don't have any resistance, so we can stay in time with the cow and, stop and go the other way. And, the danger of it, there's a lot of danger involved, but you have to have a clear understanding on how to handle cattle. And, it's both my job and the horse's job to read the cow, what it's thinking, and then it's a lot easier to control.
Yeah.
It's like a jumping horse. They have to rate going to a jump. They can't just run off.
Right.
They have to have their stride so they can get there. Otherwise, it's just a total wreck, and they have anxiety. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're just building up to the speed comes later, but you're just going to whatever the speed is, and then you bring in the other elements of the sport. So.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So, and I know because you say you're spinning them as well, and that's a pretty elaborate, maneuver. And so, just getting them any kind of maneuver like that, like, how are you getting them to do that? Like starting out small and just when do you reward for the actions to get them to a full spin?
Well, it starts when they're 2-year-olds, and we teach them very young. To just, when we turn, they cross their feet and you just release. You get a step or two and you release. And then eventually you just get a few more and you release the pressure. Mm-hmm. And these horses I ride, they're bred to step around and stop hard. They're bred to be very nimble footed. They're very light. They can step around because we can't win on a horse with real heavy shoulders because they can't move their feet fast enough. So it comes real natural to them. Mm-hmm. And so we just develop that natural ability one step at a time.
Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense too. I was just curious, for people to understand, like the maneuver is pretty elaborate. So it's interesting to hear how you get up to that level. So that's really cool. And I know your footing in your arenas are great. And you actually, I know some of your, like for the horses that are in, like you say, pasture or like a lot, it's sand. And we're talking with like farriers, that's like great footing to have your horses just when they're out and about. It's soft and low impact. What footing do you have at your arena?
So in my arena, I have a combination of washed river sand, so it's a finer grain sand. Mm-hmm. And then I also have a number 5 rock, so it's a very small rock. Mm-hmm. And so what that does is one of two things. It's all cleaned and washed, so I have low dust, so it's efficient on the maintenance end, takes less water. Mm-hmm. But it also doesn't pack in with that rock, so it constantly has some cushion. So, we're going 9-0 and stopping and going the other way, they don't just hit hard ground.
Right.
So it saves their legs, saves everything. And the other thing is they need something soft that'll hold them up when we're doing these fast turns, something a little deeper. If we have ground that's not very deep, they just can't stand up. They can't hold the ground similar to a barrel horse at speed.
Right. And so the rocks too, I imagine, would help so they can, when they stop, there's something to it versus just sand.
Cushion,
yeah, there's a little extra.
It's a very fine rock, but it's amazing. It's almost all-weather footing because the water just goes right through it. So I'm very happy with it.
Yeah. What would you say, I mean, we're talking about footing, but is like something, the best investment you can do for your horses? If you could, be in control of anything on a budget, at least as much as you can, what do you really try the most to help with your horses, to make them succeed, to help them succeed?
One thing that we spend a little bit of money on for a preventative, I guess that's more what you're asking, for the health issue, we spend a lot of money with Adequan.
Okay. And
you get more bang for your buck. It has the scientific research, but it helps the horse naturally maintain their joints. Uh-huh. And so of all things, I preach that a lot, and so we have less joint injection. And if there's, a sore joint here, you can't feel it, you miss it, well, they compensate somewhere else, so things begin to spiral out of control. So that's a major help. I feed Platinum Performance religiously to my horses. Mm-hmm. And so if they have all their vitamins, minerals, nutrients, they can think straight, perform at their best ability, and it also helps in their recovery if they're not lacking in anything.
Right. So it helps, if there's any injuries or anything like that, they're having all their nutrients and having a good
Exactly.
breakfast pretty much, then you can function.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
So it's, that, and we feed electrolytes when we haul so they stay hydrated. I have a lot of concern about that. But to me, that's the best preventative program. And another thing that helps my horses a lot as far as the preventative, they get a lot of turnout time, especially after they get worked. I try to turn everything out in the big sand pen for an hour.
That's good.
Just so they can decompress, loosen up, have their own time. My 3-year-olds, all my show horses that I ride, I try to only ride them 5 days a week and let them be turned out Saturdays and Sundays so they can decompress, move around, and rest their bodies and their minds.
Right. Let them be a horse,
Yes.
Yep. That's great. So how long would you say, what's the oldest horse that you have in competition right now, would you say? What's pretty much the longest you have him in, hard competition?
As far as hard competition, I don't even know if I want to say this. So 8 or 9, on the high end open horse, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. Otherwise, at that point, then they phase into an amateur horse, and then they go till they're, 14, 15, 16. But the thing you have to remember is what we do, the big money is when they're 3-year-olds, 4 and 5-year-olds. So we're always looking for that next generation, and we're breeding a lot for that. So there's always younger horses coming in, and with the way these horses have to be trained at a young age, by the time they're 6 and 7, they're very broke. We can show them real hard. Well, then when they get to 9 and 10, then they become show smart, and they cheat the rider a little bit. And so it's hard with that 10-year-old to compete against a 7-year-old that's fresh. And so it's, it's not ideal for a horse's life, but that just is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I know that so you have a lot of clients, a lot of people who watch you ride, and they get interested in the sport. And so you lease them out a lot of times, and that gives them a second chance to, enjoy the sport as well, for those who are just wanting to get into the to the competitions. I think that's... Yeah.
I mean, that's a big progression of what I do. I train these horses, and if they don't make open horses for me, we sell them as an amateur horse, or later on when they're, getting close to 10, and I don't want to push them that hard anymore, then we sell them as amateur horses, and they have a real nice life after that.
Right. It's like a second career at that point.
Yes. Yep,
so
exactly.
They're just moving on to their next, their next career, which is fine. I mean, it's better than being pushed too hard and then getting hurt and all that too. So, there's something wrong with, I don't see there's anything wrong with, so they're happy.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and then I guess we're going to the end of our time. I usually try to keep these around 30 minutes because people are busy. So I guess, do you have any other, just a tip that you wish you knew, when you first started, that now, something that you're like, oh gosh, I wish someone told me that?
I guess for someone starting out doing what I do, to get to a higher level, which we all want to do faster, is learn how to start horses properly at a young age. Learn that, and you'll have so much more success down the road, because if you don't have any holes, skip any steps with these young horses when you're breaking them, you have so much success down the road. And I think in all the English worlds and all that, if they had a better understanding of how to thoroughly start a horse, prepare them, they would have so much success earlier on and less issues later with that horse. It'd be so.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I wish I knew earlier in my career.
Just younger starting and getting
doing a better job with a young horse.
The basics. Yeah, just understand. Yes. That's what you're working on, is just working how the function of it, the whole process. So that's a really good tip. Awesome, Roy. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. You're writing. I do appreciate you spending some time with us, and we can hear some of your tips. So we'll be talking soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Roy. Bye.
Bye.